Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Whereabouts are you?
California.
Oh, you're just getting started for the day then?
Yeah, for most. I work night shift, so it's my.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so it's night shift for me.
Ah, well, it's good to connect.
It is. So, what have you been up to lately?
Everything. This is probably the most crazy 12 months I've had in my life,
Really?
which has been great. So, launched a podcast, which landed top 10 in 3 countries. But I think I've still got 12 that we haven't even put to the editor yet.
Oh, wow.
You know who Grant Cardone is, I guess?
Yes.
Do you know he's got Cardone University?
Mm-hmm.
So I've launched my own version of Cardone University, but for me, for the Sales Angels. So I've launched the Ultimate Sales Training Academy, starting doing live events, 2 other coaching platforms, 7 low-ticket products. So yeah, it's been a hectic time, but a great time as well.
A hectic, but a good productive hectic.
Yeah, like great. I mean, it's 5 o'clock UK time now. My day starts at 5:30. I've not even had lunch yet.
Oh, shit.
It's literally, the days just go so quick. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's already 5 o'clock. But it's good. I seem to my goal is always to try and achieve 2 years worth of results in a year. Do that for 4 years, and then you've got 8 years worth of results. And that's basically what I'm trying to do.
So you're trying to 2x for 4 so you can rest on the 5th kind of thing?
Yeah, well, so with what I'm doing now, mine's been building for the last 3 years to really tweak all of the offers. Now we're going to spend the next year basically getting out on podcast stages to promote. The goal is to impact 1 million business professionals to get to the next level. That's in short the tagline. Right. So now I've got the one-on-one coaching, the podcast, plus now the subscription service. So we could put 1 million people on the platform tomorrow, and it doesn't really take much work. So that's really the goal. So now it's all about impact. So we're launching ads, getting out, speaking to companies, speaking to teams, doing more podcasts, because now we've got everything there to add the impact. Now we've got to sort of open the floodgates rather than having 10 to 15 clients at a time. Now, I mean, over the weekend, we've had like 24 people, I think, join the platform. So if we can keep that tight, yeah, it's going like really interesting. I think the social media side it's not game changing, but it's a really interactive group. So with that and Clubhouse, it's really good.
So then what is your, is it just like online class or like a SaaS for stuff?
Say that again.
Is it like an online course that you're selling for the monthly membership?
So the platform itself, it's a fully interactive coaching platform. And what the platform does, it breaks down all of the modern ways of selling, which if we look at most companies, most salespeople, most of the sales training they use has been based upon hereditary, what was passed down to them without question. Right. And it worked, right? And it worked, and it's got a bit more diluted and a bit more diluted. So what I've done is spent a lot of the time, and the platform now, it's 680 different interactive videos from everything from mindset, lead gen, objection, the whole 9 yards. I'm specializing more in the high ticket outbound sales, because I think if you can sell high ticket outbound, you can sell low ticket inbound. And the idea behind that platform, it does 2 things. One, it's great for coaches, consultants, and experts because they've got a hub to get all their skills, which actually then some people upgrade to our one-on-one. But because it's a platform, say if you've got a team of 10 salespeople, we could set you up a hub inside our platform just for you. So Josh's team, and then Josh can see how many of the times each one of the team members have logged in. So then you've got a full LMS, if you will, but then tracks, monitors, and trains the team up in an effective way anywhere in the world. So it works in both sides. So the plan is now to scale that out to 500 businesses and then 500 coaches, consultants, and experts, and then really have that as our hub and then we'll launch further into, we're adding interviews, experts, everything inside of there. So people just have that hub to sort of come into, where it's an affordable but an effective way for people to generate more leads in their business, more deals, and just become generally kick-ass in sales.
That's awesome. So I'm just curious, you mentioned it earlier. And by the way, David, before I actually ask the question, could you give a little quick intro of yourself? I'm loving the energy already.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name's David. I'm known as the Sales Angel. I'm a sales and business coach. I'm based in the UK. A lot of business coaches that are out there are great at business, but I think every business without sales is a hobby. I specialize in the finer details in how to get modern sales training that works. And I've got a really good BS detector. So when I talk to people, I can see between the cracks. So we get more results because people stay accountable.
They can't hide from you. It's like, oh, it's this. Like,
I sucked at sales for my first period of time. And it was only, and I feel I didn't consciously give excuses. They were reasons to me. But to a professional, they were excuses. And now a lot of the people, but where the blinkers on why sales isn't working is not a conscious blinker they've got on. They don't even know they've got it on. So then we have to have a good BS detector to spot that and change the narrative they hear in their head and give them a better solution so they can elevate the results.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I used to sell martial arts, and that was, for the longest time, they're like, oh, we don't have the money or we don't have this. And then like 2 weeks later, when the window of the deal was closing, suddenly they had like the $2,000. I'm like, you said you didn't have the money. What the heck happened?
Yeah. And this is the whole thing, right? Everyone wants the results. Everyone wants the products and the services. But a lot of the time, it comes down to a couple of things. One, they don't believe it will necessarily get the results. Two, they think they're going to work it. Or three, they've just got other stuff that they prioritize and hold more important than this. A lot of people aren't in enough pain. And there's a sweet spot, right? The pain's got to be enough for some people to take action, but not too painful where they can't afford to do it and they're too much in panic mode. And I think a lot of the time in sales, people are looking for people to be in that spot rather than shining the light on all the other areas to get them to take action. So they're not just taking a position of pain to make a decision.
Right. Yeah. It's one of my coaches. He said probably like a Frank Kern saying where you like drag him to hell, but offer him a ladder on the way out, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing. I think some people buy for fear of loss. I think some people still buy for a desire for gain, but I don't think most people don't know the difference between them. They're just used to feeling I'm ready to buy or I'm not. And they think it's a conscious decision when actually it's normally an aggravation on either the pain or a stimulation on the desire for gain.
That's very true. Yeah. When I was selling martial arts, I needed to pick up clients, and it sounds really creepy to say it out of context. I would intentionally look for single mothers with a daughter going into college and say, hey, I can teach your daughter the basics. I can't guarantee her protection, but I can, if someone tries to do a terrible thing to her that starts with R, she at least can stand her ground. And it was just one of those, like, out of context, that seems like I'm the most creepiest dude looking for that. But then I realized, wait, why wait till the last second? Why not get them when they're 13 kind of thing?
Yeah, it's interesting you say it. So my dad used to have judo clubs. And we taught to the girls' venture corps, which is a bit like the girl guides, self-defense courses. And it's a thought, and I've got a daughter, my daughter's 11. And it's a thought you never want to have to think. And a lot of people just live with rose-tinted glasses thinking, oh, life's just great. But actually having the conversation with people is very hard for them people to go, oh, actually, I'm not bothered by that. Because the fear of loss is a huge driver where people go, okay, I hadn't thought of this, but now I thought about it. Now I need to take the action. In the same way we see adverts on TV for, if you're a man over the age of 40 and you don't have life insurance, do you hate your kids? Type of advert. As soon as people hear that, they're like, crap, I need to now go and take some action because now I'm conscious of it. And I think once people are conscious of a potential pain, if that pain is great enough, people will just take action.
Oh, and that's kind of what I was doing when I was selling martial arts. I would look out for those parents where I was in a very rich area when we were selling martial arts. So money wasn't a problem. It was trying to figure out the objections. And that was the one I said, at 13, do you want your kid at 18 to essentially not defend herself and be used by men? The father just stood there. Damn it. Fine. How much?
And it's interesting, if you have the right conversation with the right person, it just activates them.
Yeah.
And then they're like ready. Then they're okay, cool. So now I just need to decide, do I believe you're going to be the guy to help me, or do I find someone else? Because that's the other thing, right? Sometimes people in sales can activate someone to being a buyer, but they don't activate them for them being the person they buy from. And that's what happens a lot of times. People will have a conversation and go, okay, I've got the pain point, but then the salesperson or the consultant, the expert, does a great job of aggravating the pain, but doesn't fulfill the person with a high enough level of confidence, but they hire them. They go off and hire someone else. So they're like, yeah, the pain's great enough. Let me go and think about it. But what they really mean is, I've got the pain, but I don't know if you're the person to fix the solution.
So how, let's say I'm selling a kind of like you, a business course. What would be something you teach me as a client to?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. So there's a number of different things. One of the first things we do with most people that hire us for the one-on-one coaching is we get it. When I talk to people about hiring, what we're doing, there's a pain point they've got, but there's a fear of a cost. So our first step is, let's get our cost covered. So say, for example, if you've been doing your business for a year and you've got a bucket of 100 people that you've pitched, those people that are in there, typically in most businesses, don't get recontacted in the right way. They just get left, and we hunt around looking for the fresh meat. We look for the new leads, the new people. But actually, if we imagine our clients, that imagine a key and a lock, and the key's got to be at a certain temperature before it'll open the lock. The people you've pitched previously, there's already a bit of heat in there. They already know you. They already do agree, understand you. They know what you do. Here with a new lead, you're building that again, but there's been no rejection. So we lean to that. And one thing that we actually do is we work out, what did they do? What was their offer? And then we work out where the problem was. Okay, well, actually, how did you pitch them? And we would often get people to go, okay, let's take the next 20 minutes, pretend I've come through, tell me my client journey, or we would go into their client journey. We'd fill out a form. We'd see what the email said. We would activate and book in a call, and we'd see their full cycle. Now, normally in that cycle for a coach, consultant, or expert, we'll find 3 or 4 blind spots in there. It could be even as simple as the title of their email subject, the subject line for their emails. Because if I never opened the email, I never got the great message. If I didn't get the great message, I never booked in for the call. So then they can't. And a lot of people miss just a little trick there. And sometimes it's as simple as going in and go, well, how big's your email sequence? We've got 15 emails. Okay, well, if email subject 1 is dead, like an awful title, when the next day comes in, they're less likely to open it because the first one wasn't any good. Right? So we look for different pain points within there and different blind spots. And then what we'll do is, once we know how your structure of your client journey is, we find those blind spots. We do some quick fixes, more like glue than a plaster, that's actually going to pull things together in the business. And then we re-engage with all those people. And we take the day and we go, right, let's get a day in the diary and we're going to spend the day on the phones. And we do a day beforehand, which is prep. And we literally go through, well, this is the conversation you had last time. Here's our key objections. And we build out a full one-on-one conversation with that person. So then we know who we're calling, why we're calling them, why they probably didn't buy before, the reason we're calling this time. And then we have a list of how we want this conversation to go. Because a lot of people have got in their mind what they're trying to achieve, but they've never gone to the stage of to put it on paper in a clear and systematized way. So when they get on the call, what happens? They go with the flow of the person they're talking to, they lose track of what their objective is, and then they get pulled off course. But by having things organized, when they say this, we're going to say that. When we see this, we're going to ask that. So then we'd go back in on that database, we'd shine as an expert, and we'd pull business out. And that's one of the first things that we do. Because if we can get our clients, say if someone's going to hire us for 10K, if we can help you get free 4K clients on, you're already 2,000 in the black by the time we've done that. Now what happens? You've got far more belief in what we do. You've got far more belief in what's possible. You've got the ability to go out now, and you've got a follow-up process, which is now in place. Now all we've got to do is tweak up your lead generation, and your belief's already there. So that means you're going to execute to a higher level. And that's the big part. Most people get took on by a coach and they try and just rebuild from where we are now as a new world. But people go into that new world with no belief because their belief was already lacking. But if we can go back into what you had before and find those leads that you did a great job on, but you didn't quite convert, and now we convert them, then you're like, now I spot a difference. The easiest adage I've got for it is this. If you think about a plane, say a plane needs to hit 150 mile an hour before it takes off.
Okay.
You could be a great person at sales, but if you're only hitting 140 mile an hour, you're not going to get off the ground. But you don't need a huge amount of work. You just need 10 mile an hour more. And if what we do is we work out, well, what's roughly your speed? What's your takeoff speed? And how do we fill that gap? And then we can get you off the ground. And once you've got some traction, it's going to be far easier to keep that momentum going. And then we can build on all the other areas of the business.
Very true. No, it's very true. I was just thinking the reason what I brought up earlier for the business concept is I've been approached a lot for business, like empathy in the workplace. Instead of treating your employees like a number, actually treat them like a human.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it's one of those, it's kind of hard in a sense to like pitch it to say, hey, stop being an asshole to your employees and you'll actually see more money come back to you.
Yeah. I think the problem being, it's not a problem, but I think the interesting part of the conversation is when you know your avatar in a clear and defined way, a lot of people go, okay, well, here's the industry I help. But actually in that side, it's not the industry you help, it's the type of leader that you've got. Because if you're going in with a whole idea, which is an idea shift they've never even thought of, the idea and the conception of that idea is hard. Or you're going into a business that's too big, but the person who actually would agree to it, they'd struggle to implement because there's such a high level of management underneath that are old school that won't get it behind it, but it won't work. And this is the problem you've got. So my solution at that point would be, okay, well, how do I find a company which is growing, wants to grow fast, but isn't yet set in stone? And the person who buys the product would also be implementing the service. So that might be a company that's only got 10 people, but they have a very high ticketed product that's turning over 5 million a year, 10 million a year. Because then it's easy to change the culture on what happens. If you're going into a company that's been in there for 20 years and all the managers hate the idea, they're going to drag their feet. And even if the staff want to do it, it won't get implemented. So I think the avatar at that point is vitally important.
Yeah, the major one, because I had another business guy come on the show and they asked the same thing, like, who's your avatar? I'm like, I think it's small to like medium-sized businesses. Medium kind of being pushy because they might be too far.
But what do you class as? Here's it. And sorry to interrupt. What do you class? When I talk about it, think about the people you're working with. Instead of thinking in context of small to medium, think of numbers. Because what you want to do in our head, in this side, we want to go, okay, well, how many managers would I want to have? So it might be in that company, there might be 3 departments, 6 managers, and each manager's got 4 people. Okay, now we've got some numbers. What's the or if we're going to go into something which is really small, there might be a director, and then you've got the sales director, marketing director, and they've all got 3 people. That'd be easier to impact. And if the price value is higher, what they sell, actually the lost revenue goes up far quicker as well, if that makes sense.
Right. So then it would be your second avatar you presented would be that one I would be targeting where.
Yeah. And that's the point. And I think small businesses don't come in till it's like 100 employees now. Like I know what we mean, but a lot of the time when we do it, and this is why it's interesting, because then we go, okay, well, who am I getting to be the decision maker? Am I approaching the CEO, the managing director, the sales director, the CFO? Who's the person that will see the pain point to the highest degree on what we're talking about, who actually has enough pull in the business to make a decision, but also isn't just going to palm it off to someone who doesn't care. And that's why it's interesting. So I was talking to a guy the other day, and they're very much about sustainable energy. So actually, if you've got a company that's into sustainability already, their mindset's going to be more open to that type of product.
Sustainability. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because their culture is already on about sustainability, about thinking outside the box, about doing something which is harder, but for the long-term good of the environment. So now if you're looking at a smaller business, which you know that the person you're going to pitch is a decision maker and an implementer who's out on the floor, if you know that it's a company which has got small teams but high products, if you know they're already into sustainability, suddenly you've got a lot smaller window, but you can narrate your pitch far better. Because now you're approaching them with, as you're a forward-thinking company, I loved your article about sustainability on X, Y, and Z, but have you ever thought about the sustainability of your team?
Ooh.
And now you've got a conversation that's talking about that. Because now we're scratching an itch on something that they're doing. And what I talk to a lot of people about, if you're outreaching, especially cold calling or marketing, you want to have a provocative question. So something that is going to make them itch, which is open-ended, but it's going to talk and it shines you as an expert. So, for example, I was listening to a guy before and he was talking about exactly the same thing. And their example was that they were dealing with medical sales. And they were going out to talk to large medical sales companies that had medical products they sold. They were high-ticketed products, but their overall costs were hiring costs because they used to lose a lot of their staff. So it was about recruitment. So their biggest cost was recruitment consultant fees. Now, what they did was their introduction was, as you'll be aware, with increasing costs with recruitment consulting going up by an average of 12% per year, whatever it was, in the next 5 years, your costs will have increased by around 80%. What actions have you took right now to lower the amount of recruit, right? So this whole question aggravates an itch, highlights their big pain problem, paints a problem in the future that's going to be a big pain, and it shows you know their industry. And then at the end of that, if they say, well, we're doing X, Y, and Z, great. Now you're in a conversation. If they're like, not thought about it, great. I'm glad I'm on the phone. So that provocative question shines as an expert, shows everything, but then leaves us in a position where the conversation we're having is open. And that's where you want to be at with what you're talking now. Because if you've got the sustainability and you find a big chart or a stat or result about the lost earnings, and you compare that to every company that plants a tree to save some oxygen, and you bring that into a story that's an open-ended question, but highlights the plight that they're going through anyway, but the damage which is being caused within their company by not taking action now, you then find out if they've got a plan in place, great. What is the plan? How can you better it? And if they haven't got a plan, why?
That hits hard. It's like, well, shoot, I don't know.
Yeah. And then you say, listen, I understand, but that's why we're outreaching to you. Because every company that's in your place now is thinking about the world in 20 years. And I salute you for that. But we're missing out on what you could do in your business. And do you know what? If we could say they're missing out on 500,000 in revenue. Do you realize that the 500,000 you're missing out on revenue could go towards the sustainability program you've got in place? So not only will your staff be better, but you can carry on doing more for sustainability. So your business grows, but so does your mindset and everything you're doing. By working in sustainability in your company, not outside your company. Let me show you what we can do.
Dude, I don't even have a company. I would have signed up right there.
See what I'm saying? And all of that's in the start of if you can get to that start of a conversation, it's far easier. Because you're not phoning up saying, hi, I'm calling from John. And I know that you're a forward-thinking person. I'd like to introduce you to a fantastic product. What we're saying is, hey, listen, I wanted to outreach to you, loving your articles recently. I wanted to ask you a quick question. We just spoke to John over at ARP, and it was interesting what he said, but I'd love to know your answer. Right. So the fact remains that we know, and then it goes into that provocative question. Mm-hmm. We've got attention. We shine as an expert. We get the itch being itched. We find out where they stand. And suddenly, if they're like, I've never thought of that, or we've already got that, either way, you're winning.
Right, because they acknowledged it and said something about it. If
they're like, listen, I love the question. We've already got that. Amazing. How did you come across that plan? Well, we did this and we did that. Oh, great. And how did that work out? Oh, I've done this and that. Wow. I tell you what, you guys are leading. Most of the other companies have not even thought that way. Let me ask you a quick question. In 3 years, do you think you will, right? And then you start leaning into your product. And then it's about who they're using and why they're using them to what your solution could be. And if you're smart and you know you're competitive, you know what your advantage would be.
Right. Yeah, the only reason I even brought that idea up is now I'm trying to, like, with all the avatar and mindset stuff you just gave me, I had a weird incident when I was doing security. High profile guy, had weight in the company. pretty much came up to me and said, hey, I know you're an observant person. Why is my building, my warehouse that got me to where I'm at failing? He's like, it's my baby. And that's where I told him, long story short, I said, essentially the guy with the neck tattoo was wishing pain instead of coming here, kind of thing. I'm like, morale does not exist here. And pretty much I gave him a couple of tips, just like offhanded, like, hey, just do this. We as humans love games. Even if we're not competitive, we'll play a game. And so can you afford to put like $500 of your own cash on the line for the next like month? He's like, yeah, that's like 2 steak dinners. I'm like, I don't know where you go for 2 steak dinners at $250 a shop, but I want to try this place out. You're paying though. And essentially, yeah, he did it. And then but it was just one of those, because me and him built a good rapport. I didn't even realize he was such a high person. He handed me a blank check and said, all right, here you go. I'm like, that's it. I like talked to you for 5 minutes. I got like 10 grand. Really?
But that's the whole thing, right? There's a story of years ago, and there's a guy who's got a factory, and suddenly a production line comes to a grinding halt, and they phone this guy up, and the engineer comes in, waddling in with his toolbox, and he looks around, and he's like, gets his screwdriver, opens one panel, turns the screw, shuts the panel, gives him an invoice. Machines all start, £5,000. And the guy's like, £5,000? You've been here for 2 minutes. And he went, I can give you a breakdown of the invoice if you want. And he said, yeah, that'd be great. So he literally breaks down the 5,000, and he's like, £25 for call out fee, £4,975 for knowing which screw to turn. And he hands it back to the guy, and the guy's like, what's this for? And he's like, I can take longer if you want, but I thought you'd want it fixed as quick as possible. Like, you shouldn't be penalized because it didn't take longer. It didn't take more effort. We're paying a lot of the time for the advice. And the fact is that guy saw that value in what you gave him in that point. The problem is, especially in coaching, as soon as you tell someone something, they always feel that they knew it.
Yes.
And this is why free advice is hard. Because if I told you something now and you go, my God, that was amazing. After a while, you'll forget where you were before you knew it. And you'll feel like you always knew it. And eventually you won't even look at like, I told you it. You look at, oh yeah, I sort of knew that and you reminded me. And eventually I become less involved in that, what happened, and it becomes more your idea. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens in a lot of situations. Because a lot of the time out there, we go, oh yeah, I've always known that. Did we?
Have you?
Yeah, we didn't. Someone else told us. And this is the problem why a lot of places in businesses, coaches and consultants fail. Because as much as you want to give stuff to people, I always say you want to give away the recipe or give away the ingredients. If you give away too many of the full dinner, you've got nothing left to sell. And people don't need you. And there's a difference between shining as an expert, which you did in your one, right? And giving away too much, where that guy eventually gets used to just getting your advice for free. And then familiarity breeds contempt. So then they don't value it as much anyway. So then they don't even action it.
Right. Yeah, that's a recent one. A lot of people have been calling me on how to start a podcast and how to run it, and recently editing. That's where I heard your editing one. I'm like, that's funny. But and it was a guy keeps calling me. He was milking it for like a month, and I was just like, nope. At this point, unless you are going to pay up, I'm not going to talk anymore.
Yeah. And you know, I do it almost like a 3-2-1 with people. The first time people say to me about it, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm happy to do that. I'll even send you someone said the other day, I do a lot of Instagram reels, and they do all right. And the guy said, I love what you did. How'd you do it? I said, I recorded a video, and I literally done a screen recording. It took me less than a minute. Sent it. He's like, my God, that's amazing. About a week later, he messaged me, hey, quick question. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work out how to do, the second one, he messaged me and he said, I had this problem with this client. He asked me this and I didn't know what to say. What would you have done? I went, listen, more than happy to tell you, but letting you know this is a 2 out of your 3. And he went, what do you mean? I said, I'll give away a couple of pointers to you. But I said, I can't do it all the time. I said, but if you need anything after the third one, you'll have to jump on one of the programs because I definitely approve my value. Does that make sense? Right. He's like, yeah. No worries. So I told him. A week and a half, 2 weeks later, he's like, right, I need to hire a salesperson, but I don't know what questions to ask. I went, bud, I'll give you a couple of pointers, but this is 3 out of 3. If this is a good bit of advice, are you prepared to invest in it? Because I definitely think we've proved ourselves. And he went, I don't know if we're ready for that. I went, so stop all calling for advice. He's not a cash cow. Right. And I'm happy to help. But if I just prove to you, like imagine me being a fireman. You got a fire, I'll come and put it out. No, second time you get a fire, I'll put it out. Third time, you're like, listen, mate, You need to pay for the fire brigade. Like the government doesn't cover us anymore. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll probably learn how to do it. Okay, cool. Like you've got to, giving to people is great. But if you're at a stage where you are making 100 million a year and you want to give it all away for free, good for you. That's cool because you're covered. But most people that do that have already built their businesses up.
Right.
And like we do now with our platform, we give the whole thing away for 2 weeks for people for free. Whole thing, 680 videos. Because we know out of all the people that stay, 60, 70% will stay on. And they'll pay a couple £100 a month because they're going to get the value. And the people that don't. But I had a guy today. He went, I'm not adding my card details at the start. I went, okay. He went, why don't you do it? Why are you doing that? I went, we're getting 25 people a day. Join us. So when you join, you add it. We're not trying to skip, hustle you into paying. But if we're getting 25 people a day,
we don't have time to.
I'd have to hire a team of people to phone up and say, hi, John, we see you've been on the platform. And this is if you answer the first time anyway. Would you like to continue your subscription? Okay, great. Well, we need your 16. I'd have to hire a team to do that.
Yeah, there's no reason for that.
Right. And he said, well, I don't feel comfortable doing it. I said, well, here's the thing. If you don't feel comfortable in handing it over, you don't have to. But you also probably don't feel comfortable with taking the advice that I'm giving you and putting it into your business. Because there's a risk in that. Right? If you're implementing something I teach you, there's a risk it might go wrong or not be good. So I said, if you've got the confidence in implementing it to your business, you probably have. You're just nervous about getting the value. And if you don't get the value, leave after 12 days. I don't mind. And he went, yeah, I suppose I better go ahead, don't I? It's up to you. I don't mind.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it's that perspective of it, right? He's worried about putting card details in, but wasn't second guessing. But the information he's seen on Reels for the last 6 months, he's used in his business that worked. Actually, yeah, we're at, yeah, okay. Yeah, I could be fine.
100%. No, and that's the same for me. The one client that I finally closed, and he was just hemming and hawing, trying to milk it. He's like, oh, it's so expensive. And it's one of those at first, I was like, okay, fair enough. Like your podcast is not making money. It would be a little unfair for me to charge you $1,000 a month kind of thing. I said, but but that 1,000, and I broke it down perfectly for him. It would be this much for calls, this much for unlimited follow-up, this much for like backlogging. I said, you're only going to get 1 hour. And after that 1 hour for the week, don't even bother calling me because I'm not going to answer kind of thing. And he's like, okay, I can pay for that. And if we start adding value, I'll pay more. I'm like, well, I promise you within 3 months, you're going to be tripling that kind of thing.
Yeah. But this is the whole thing with it. And so when people go, oh, it's expensive. It is. Like I say about our Batman service, which is the biggest all singing, all dancing one, and that's more for larger companies,
right?
Is 50,000 a year. And someone said, my God, that's expensive. Yeah, it is.
Because you're not the audience either.
But would you like me to explain why people pay it and how people add up 1.5, 2 million onto their revenue? I mean, if I say, give me 50,000, I'll give you back 2 million. Do you want it? And like, well, yeah, of course.
They'd be like, take it. I'll figure out how to get the money.
Exactly. And I said to him, you've also got to bear in mind that part of our Batman service means it's literally, you need Batman, you put the torch in the sky and he comes flying in. So if you phone on a Sunday afternoon at 3:00 and I'm having Sunday dinner with my kids and you phone up and you're like, there's an emergency, I need your help, I pick up the phone. Right. I said, and for companies that got high turnover with big staff, if I had a guy before, it was a $300,000 deal that was falling out. By him being on the phone to me, not only did we save it, we upsold it to a $740,000 deal. So that one call made their profits about 70%.
Damn.
That one call made over $500,000. You got me for the rest of the year for free.
Pretty much.
Right? And it's that perspective. And then he was like, okay, well, yeah, I don't think we need that. I said, I don't think you do either. But I want you to realize that's where you can end up when your business grows. But how does this sound? If I told you at £10,000, you don't get me on Batman, but you get me all the rest of the time, would that be good for you? Well, that sounds more affordable. So now that 50,000 he freaked out about has now made the 10 seem more affordable. If I'd started at 10, he probably would have said that was expensive.
And then 50,000, like you're insane.
Yeah, because he didn't have a measuring stick. And it's the same as when you go into Porsche. You walk in and see a 911 and you're bloody hell, that's expensive for 120,000. Now you walk in and there's a Carrera GT for 800,000. And you go, yeah, don't worry about that. Come and see the 911. It's only 120,000. Because now there's a measuring stick.
Yes.
And that's what makes the difference.
So I'm curious. This is one tactic I was working with my coach on, and he never really followed up. It's a similar thing. Let's say I pitched the highest, most expensive one, all the details, and let's say hypothetical 20K. And that's expensive. I'm like, well, you can get like the really dumbed down version for a fourth of the price or like half the price. Is that a good tactic to go at it too?
I wouldn't say dumbed down. Unless you're trying to alienate someone from going to it. So this is the way I look at it. There's some different approaches. One, you can start an early conversation and say, listen, there's a few levels to this. You can get started, and either way I can help you. And this is what I say to the people on the platform. I say, listen, there's 3 options. Our biggest option, all singing, all dancing, and say they've got a team of 10 salespeople, they're doing 5 million a year. All singing, all dancing, you come in with a Batman service. That always gets them to ask what it is. And I say, but just to let you know from the back, that's 50,000. But there's a reason why it's 50,000. And then I talk to them about and go, listen, that's added 2 million in revenue to some companies. If I could add 2 million in revenue, would you have a budget for that? Or is that outside of a scope, even if you wanted to? And asking that question, like if you knew you'd make 2 million, would you have a budget? Because if they say, God, even if it's going to make you 10 million, I haven't got the budget for that. I couldn't sway it. Okay, good. Well, there's other options around. Let me talk to you about what we've got, right? That I think makes more sense. Because if you fix on that for a second, you go, listen, forget what's included. Imagine it made you 2 million. Would you have that budget? If someone said to me today, there's a Lamborghini one-of-one Murcielago for £600,000. If you buy it, it'll be worth $1 million in the next year. I'm not buying it. I don't care if there's a guarantee from a queen. I'm not putting 600,000 on a car, even if it was going to double in value. So that would be a pointless car to try and sell me. If someone tells me about an AC Cobra for 80 grand, then yeah, I'll buy it. Right? So there'd be no point, however good the offer is, if the budget wouldn't be there, but it gives you a measuring stick of where people are. And if you've got a product for 20K and you say to them, listen, there's a couple of options here. Let me just talk to you about it and we'll go from there. Because either way, I can help you. So the lowest option out here, what's your lowest option cost?
This is a hypothetical, but let's say the lowest option would be 5K.
Okay. So say the lowest option is 5K and you got a 10K and a 20K, right? You say those 3 tiers over here. Be all singing, all dancing. The best one out there gets the best results, but it's an investment. It's 20K. Let me ask you this. Say I ticked all the boxes of everything you ever dreamed of and you added millions in revenue. Would 20K be in the ballpark that you could afford if you wanted to? Right? And then anytime I go, listen, nah, I don't even think we would. Okay, cool. So between me and you, a lot of people start at the mid-range. And if we do X, Y, and Z, they'll often upgrade to that later once we've proved it. Do you think that'd be more what you'd be looking for? Or are you the type of person to start at the very bottom level because you freak out about stuff and you want to build up slowly? You tell me, what do you normally do? And they go, I normally start at the bottom. Okay, cool. Tell me, what did you start with last time? Oh, we started with A, B, and C. Okay, cool. How did that work out? It was crap. Do you think it was crap because you went cheap? Or do you think it was right? Oh, actually, it went great. Oh, brilliant. Why did it go great? What did you like about it? What didn't you like? Did it hit your expectations? How did you feel when you started? Were you excited? Were you disappointed? Or if they went for the mid one, how did you feel making that purchase? Did you sign the check and do the transfer and freak out? Or are you quite comfortable making those investments? I like making those decisions because I'm confident. When I invest more, I know I normally get a better result. So those questions at the end of it, we haven't even spoke about what's involved in that package. Because what we really want to know is how do they feel about those packages around that value? What's their expectation? Do they feel that cheap or low cost is better? Do they feel that cheap or low cost is the worst thing on the world? Because then you change the whole narrative about what you talk about and how you approach it, because then you know what they're trying to achieve.
Very true. Yeah, very true. I'm just like sitting here. It's like such good knowledge. I'm like, wow, keep up, Josh.
This is the whole thing. It's like everything's got levels to it. And if after 20 years of doing sales on a high ticket outbound basis, we haven't picked up some things that are in there, and we've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. And this is the whole thing behind it now. The idea of doing these podcasts and all these lives that we do is simply that most people that are in sales are competent. right? What we're trying to do is get people up to a Kobe Bryant level. Yeah. And most people feel they're Kobe already. Most people think they're in the NBA finals standard of sales. And it's only when we break it down, and there's nothing wrong with being at 80K a year. Mm-hmm. But actually, if you're at 80K a year, there's a big jump you can go with a small amount of skills we add on. And that's really the sweet spot that we work with.
Yeah, it is. And it was, like I was mentioning when I was selling martial arts, it was like those small tweakings, whether I realized it or not. It might have been my instructor, and just with time I figured it out. When I did those small tweaks, it went from maybe closing 5 clients a week to like closing almost 20. Yeah. And telling them like, hey, I'm like literally, to take you on as a student, I'm full. Like you're gonna have to jump your prices up, kind of thing.
Yeah. And a lot of it's the small things. I'll give you a prime example. Have you ever heard of the I never told you to kill her exercise?
No.
Okay. So this is really weird. People forget how important tonality is. Now, if we use one phrase, I never told you to kill him, right? And then we just change the tonality of this sentence, the whole meaning changes. And think about this in yourself. So if I say, I never told you to kill him, I never told you to kill him, I never told you to kill him, I never told you to kill him. Each point is a different meaning, right? The implication is dramatic. And it's a change in tone on one word. So now think about your sales pitch, your presentation, the way you close, the way you handle objections. How many times you could get that one slightly off and the implication is different than we meant? Or our accent is different to what they're used to hearing. So they feel that the way you say it is different than what you meant. And this is why it's so important that when you're in a conversation, you're really clear and you're concise, but you're clear on the tonality and what you emphasize. Because sometimes that one slight word when you go in for a close or you ask for the order, they freak out. Yeah. So we've got to be clear about it. And that's where tuning the engine on a race car makes a difference, right? You turn it one little bit too far, it's over revving, right? You adjust for brakes too much and they're too tight. Other times it's too loose, right? Changing the gear ratios is going to alter, depends on the terrain you've got. And most people out there are driving rally cars thinking it's Formula One. And it don't work the same.
Right.
And that's the big thing in sales. Most people move industry. They take the success they had in medical sales and they go to real estate and they're like, we're just not hitting as well. No, because your tonality's off. You're talking to a different person about a different thing. You were talking about some high-end hospital about some £2 million machine, when now you're talking to a guy and a couple that are about to have kids on a £2 million house, but they're scared shitless of, right? And it's a big, big difference. The fact your sales skills are fairly similar, but the tonality and the way you talk to them is everything. And that's why it doesn't hit for most people.
Yeah, no, I have to very much agree with that, because like near the end, I was more the empathetic, like I'm here to listen to you tone. And in the beginning, I love my instructor, but I make fun of him now. He's very aggressive, like alpha personality. Unless you're alpha, get the hell out of my office kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. And he had great conversions, but like for me, I couldn't keep up with those. So it was like I would close them, but then I would also have to train them kind of thing. And
yeah, exactly. And you shouldn't pitch it the way he is. It's different people, right?
Right. And that's where I think for a certain point, I realized that I'm like, I'm not looking for his type of clientele. I'm looking for more the understanding, more open-minded, easygoing, got like stereotypical California man, like, hey man, kind of a vibe. So yeah, that was just trial by fire that I figured that out. But now, like listening to you and many of the other guys I've had on this show, I've realized it's like, if you do it enough, you will figure it out, even if you got no context. You get a guy like David, though, he's going to just give you nitrogen. You're going to go flying down the racetrack.
But that's the idea, right? It's developing in sales the ear for what you're doing. So, for example, if you're on a sales call now, and I know your product and service, and we've worked together for a while, I should be able to sit with you on a headset and I can't hear the other person and help you without hearing what they say. Because if we've got the right conversation structured in the right way, based on the question you ask and the reaction that you've got, I'll know roughly what they've said, because actually the words that they're saying isn't necessarily as relevant. It's the reaction to the salesperson. And That's what screws up more deals, is the way the salesperson reacts to an objection or a hurdle or a question. Their tonality changes more than the buyer. more than the potential client. And that's what ruins the deal, is the flap that goes into it, or what happened, or the confused look, or that big pause where they didn't know the answer. And that a lot of the time is what the problem is. It's not the fact that the prospect didn't want to buy, the buyer didn't want to buy. The flow was lost, the rhythm was lost, the barrier was built up by the salesperson out of that. And then that breaks the routine, and then they don't know where to go. And then it just goes, and the whole tempo gets lost. Yes.
But would also like the actual closing statement, like you didn't stumble, you didn't raise your tone, but like, let's say, is there any other questions, or do you want to proceed forward on signing up for whatever? And I actually had a client just sit there for 10 minutes, and I'm like, what do I do, kind of thing. And it's one of those, I remember my instructor yelling at me, like, if they're quiet, you're fine. Don't interrupt them, or you're going to lose your sale right there.
Do you know the problem you've got with it? Some people in the early stages here, who speaks first loses, right? And that can really cause problems in your deal. But the problem in the early stages is often people will go into the sale when they haven't got the person's full attention. They ask a question and the person wasn't even listening, and then the silence. And then people freak out and screw it up. But if you've had a real purposeful conversation and we've gone through this and you've answered 15, 20 questions, and we've gone through it all, and I've really gauged where you're at. I know your emotional state. I know the pain point. I know the problems. And we've gone all the way through. And at the end of it, I turn around to you and say, hey, I think the best thing for us to do is if we just get started now, I can get everything booked over for you straight away. And we can have you onboarded on Tuesday. Would Wednesday be better for you? And if I stay silent at that point, you're thinking about days. You could be looking at your calendar. But a lot of people, what they do in sales is this. Okay, great. So I think we should get started. Do you want to get started Tuesday or Wednesday? And it's really rushed through.
That's startling.
And then the person's like, what? And they're sat there confused. And that's why the tone and the pace is so important. Because if I'm like, okay, listen, do you have any more questions? And you're like, no, okay, cool. So thinking about this, looking at my diary, and I'm looking at this on my screen, and I'm like, looking at the diary, and I'm thinking out loud. Tuesday looks all right. Monday, no. Wednesday. Tuesday, we could onboard you on Tuesday. If we onboarded you on Tuesday, you'd be in for probably Wednesday. We haven't done. Yeah, I think we should have sussed these blind spots out by the following Friday. What would work for you? Do you want to do Tuesday, or is Thursday going to be better for you? You just tell me. Right? If we're going in where you're hearing me talk, and I know you're engaged and I know you're listening, when we go silent, they're ready to answer. And if there's a silence, it's because they're thinking. And if I've slowed down and I'm thinking out loud, they should have been keeping along with that pace. So the gap shouldn't really be as long anyway. And you should know straight away. Because if you've gone really long-winded, if I'm thinking outside for a good 10 seconds, okay, we could do Tuesday. By the time I'm going, maybe Thursday, they've already decided if Tuesday was a good day for them. Mm-hmm. Right? A lot of the time there's a big pause because it was such a blunt and fast close for the order that the person wasn't ready, so they hadn't really thought about it. And on the flip side, if there's no pause and they object straight away, you've more than likely gone in for it and asked for the order far too quick, where you were ready to ask for the order, not you, but the hypothetical you, where they weren't. And that's what happens with a lot of salespeople as well. We rush through that conversation to get to the close instead of finding a solution that matched for the right person and then trying to complete the order. Yeah, very true. And I'm going to say, but there's no science on the right point when to close, right? There's no science. You say there's no... You got to bear in mind, you're playing like battleships. You're guessing and you're feeling out without a clear guide. You've got different personality types, different buying types. You've got different knowledge levels, different needs, different pain points, different budgets, different people they relate to, talk to, different solutions, different ideas. All of these are all mystical things that you don't know. This is why it's so important to really find what those pain points are. And if you're going into it and really digging in on the emotional side, like a lot of people do almost like a survey. And I'll be like, okay, cool. So what's got you on the call today? What's the big pain point? Okay, why is that hurting? Okay, great. And have you set a budget aside? Okay, great. And blah, 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 blah. But actually, by slowing this whole thing down and being like, hey, just off the bat, I'm not even too sure if we can help. You'll know it's like some people, it's just, they're too far gone in their business. What I'm aiming to do at the moment is work out on 3 or 4 areas if we think it's a good fit for you. We'll work out where you are. Either way, I'm going to tell you, yes, I think we can help, or I'll let you know I can't. But if I can't help, I'll promise you this. I'll put you in the direction of some other people. So either way, you'll come off this call in a better position you are now. Does that sound fair enough? Yes. Okay, cool. So I'll give you a prime example. Someone I spoke to earlier, and you tell me what you think about this. And suddenly we're into a nice, relaxed conversation where you're not feeling pressured, right? You're not freaking out. You're not worried about me trying to close you. You know, at the end of this, if I can't help you, I'm going to point you in the direction of someone else anyway. And now we can actually really get into what is the problem? What's the pain point? And find out, actually, if we can't help, we can't. Or if your pain isn't, the problem isn't costing you that much money, whether you'd even have a budget for it anyway. Because some people don't even know what the problem is. And what they think the problem is often isn't. So they come to you with a problem, but the diagnosis you'll give based on what they think it is will be wrong, which means they won't then buy from you. So this is why, what do you think the problem is? I'm going to ask a series of good questions to find out if that really is the problem. And then it might be a different diagnosis from what I would have first thought.
Right. And it could be cheaper or more expensive on their end, but you've proven the point and you have the solution. So even if it is expensive, unless you just broke the budget completely, they'll pay.
Well, sometimes I talk to people and they'll say, oh, I need more leads. Prime example. Oh, okay. My lead generation sucks. I need to get ads. I've tried Facebook ads, didn't work. Okay, cool. Right. So let's break it down. Think of it like a maze. There's a load of different pathways we could have gone down. And just because what you're doing right now doesn't work doesn't mean that's the wrong pathway. You might have just been doing it slightly off. So tell me a bit more about what you've done, what you expected to happen, and we'll work it out. Let's crunch some numbers. And so then normally, if we're on a Zoom, I'll get a pen and paper out just because people like to see you write stuff down. I go, okay, cool. How many leads did you get in this month? We had 80. Okay. How many did you close? We closed 5. Okay, cool. And who done the sales? It was me. Okay, cool. And this, and how much is it worth? And blah, 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 blah. And suddenly work out, they've got a 5% conversion rate and they're talking to people for 15 minutes on a high ticketed product where they haven't even done enough work. And you go, okay, well, the problem isn't you haven't got enough leads. The problem is you're not structuring the conversation in a good enough way that they feel comfortable to take action. So actually, you don't need leads. So if I started talking about lead gen, you're still going to have a problem because you have a 5% conversion rate.
Right.
Right? What do they really need? You need a structure that's more effective and designed for your buyer to feel comfortable that you are competent and able to help them and make it easy for them to make a buying decision where we remove as much of the risk as possible, we increase the level of certainty that it's going to be a success, and believe the fact that your product or service is going to be easy for them to implement. Because if it's easy to implement, we remove the risk and the likelihood of success is increased. They're far more likely to go ahead. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. So now you can diagnose something with a good explanation on why you don't need to spend more money on ads. Ads aren't the problem. The pitch is the problem. The questions you're asking, or even in the wrong order, and the way you're leading that conversation isn't helping you. And adding more ad leads is just going to cost you more money because then you need more people and you've got to train them. You actually really need less people. You just need to get more precise.
Right. Yeah, I want to say, let's talk about that hypothetical 5%. So what would say that business is me? How would you, I don't know how to use SEO or anything, but I know like Facebook and Google ads to get leads. Would you recommend maybe something different? Like if it's a SaaS or a software as a service or something else?
To generate more leads or to get better at conversion?
Get more leads.
I think if you've got a higher ticketed product and you've got a 5% conversion, you don't have a lead problem. You have a conversion problem. And that just means imagine having a car with 1,000 horsepower, but every time you press on the accelerator, load of the engine was like none of the power was going through. It was all coming out the bottom of the engine. Like you don't need a new engine. You need to just get the power to come through.
Right.
And that's what's happening with a lot of businesses. People are under baking their cakes. They're doing things that's just not effective. So if you're only, think of it like this. Imagine as a salesperson, you've got a 5% conversion. You're a standalone expert and you're getting whatever. Say you're getting free appointment, qualified appointments a day, right? That's 3 hours work. It's an hour-long consultation, blah, blah, blah. But you're only converting 5%. If you can convert 10%, you've doubled your money, right? If you go and increase your ad spend by another $2,000 a month and you still stay at 5%, you've still got the cost of the ads. You might need new staff. You're going to have to send more emails, do more of this, do more of that. There's a lot more costs that come in, or you just become better at selling. And that's all on you. And if you've got a team, it's even more relevant. Because if you increase the sales skills of your team, it doesn't mean they're only going to get better by 5%. You might get better by 20%. I could teach you one thing that might increase your sales by 30%. Right?
Yeah.
That's the difference. If you're getting a £3 lead, okay, we spend £100, we're going to get 33 more leads. Or you develop the skills, those skills stay with you forever. The ad spend, you've got to spend every month.
Yes, you do, no matter what.
Right? So if we start spending another 2K a month on ads, that's another 24K a year, plus the staff, plus the cost, plus all the other stuff. More people to follow up with. But if you can increase the skill level, you might only see another 5% in sales. You might see 20%. You might see 50%. Because that one thing you've got, that one skill that you learn, could be the difference between you seeing a 25% conversion rate and a 5%. Your increase on ad spend is only going to increase your amount of leads, but it also increases your amount of risk. Because what happens if Facebook suddenly change their algorithm? What about your ads suddenly fall on its ass? Now you've got no conversion. If you've got the skills for your team to sell more effectively, or you take them, it doesn't matter what happens with your ads. Because if you have to start organically generating leads, if you move to SEO, every person that comes on that phone is getting a better version of you. And if they're getting a better version of you, they're more likely to buy. And if they don't buy today, they're more likely to buy later. Increasing ads is just increasing the volume of people coming in. That's not the pain point. The pain point is what happens when people come in your door, come in your business, turn up as a lead. How many of those leave and go, wow, that's a company I want to work with. And even if it's not now, at some point I will. If you've got 95% of people that don't buy from you, 95 out of 100 go, not for me.
But what if it's they're more up the higher point of the funnel, like the upper part? They're just being introduced.
What do you mean?
So like they're. I'm going to go back to martial arts because that's the one. Is a lot of them would come in because I would literally just take flyers and run around the neighborhood and just slam it in their doors, kind of thing.
Yep.
And so it brought the awareness, but they were like, well, martial arts is like Taekwondo. Just take your dough. Like, I'm not actually going to learn anything. So it was like a whole process, like a month, just working with them, explaining them that. And then once I got them down the funnel more, then I was able to close it. But it looked like for my first 3 months, I barely had a 2% conversion rate. But that 3 month point on, it was like insane.
Yeah, but that's because you're planting seeds. That's a pipeline problem, right? Your first conversion, if I walk into a room now and say, hi, everyone, you've never met me before, who wants to buy? And I get a 2% conversion rate, you wouldn't be surprised. Right. If I turn up in that place every week for the next 4 months, you would expect more people to. Because the people that met me in month 1 are now interested in buying. Your skill level didn't go up. Your pipeline was just further along. And now we're dining on month 4 for people who met me in month 1.
Right.
And that's the difference. When you start off in month 1, you've got no pipeline. So you're only actually selling to the people that will be self-actuators are like, yeah, crap it, let's go. But now in month 4, the people from month 1 are starting to get activated. Mm-hmm. And that's why we see an increase in sales for a lot of people. It's not because your skills got any better. You've just got more people in the pipeline. But imagine for a moment that those questions on month 1 were better and the way you had the conversation was better. The thought-provoking questions were more engaging. We got that person to feel, I need this. Not like, oh yeah, Taekwondo, take my dough. I'm not going to learn anything. But actually, if the conversation is, hey, listen, you might have heard some shocking things about take my dough. I mean, Taekwondo. And it's funny people talk about it because a lot of people suck. Do you mind if I tell you the top 3 reasons why people say take my dough instead of Taekwondo? Right, here's number 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it's a conversation about the very objection that people think about. That increases it because instead of running away from a hurdle of take my dough, we use it as the marketing.
And I think that was one client I did close. So they were saying that like, oh, all martial arts the same. Just take my money. Like, why are your tests so expensive? And I said, well, it was pretty much the thing. Like the test, you're paying for our time essentially, and but the first 3 tests, you're just mainly paying for the outfit. The outfit's not cheap, kind of thing. But
sorry to interrupt. But what you're doing then, you're justifying your cost. They don't care about the cost. They don't see the value. The cost is what they pay. The value is what you get. You're explaining why the fees are low. You get the gear and all the other stuff. What did they say? You don't learn anything. They don't care about the cost if they learn it. And the value wasn't there. And that's the problem. If you've got someone, if I say to someone, listen, you know the fact that the fees are the fees. We don't take the money on the fees. That's just what it is. Let me explain to you why most people think that martial arts sucks. It's because week 1, they love it. They're enthusiastic. Week 2, they start feeling embarrassed because they suck. Week 4, week 5, they still suck. They're not seeing any results. Now, let me ask you this. Say we went to the gym today and you want to get ripped. And you went in and we went hard today. You went home, you took your top off. Would you expect to see any muscles? No. What about 3 months in? You might see a little bit, right? What about 6 months in? We start seeing something. Now imagine if you did meal prep. Now imagine you started eating twice a day and you calorie counted. What would be the difference in your results? It would be massive. That's exactly the same with martial arts. You're not going to see it in month 1. So if you're thinking you're going to come in and learn to start throwing roundhouse kicks on month 1, this isn't for you. But if you stay committed to this, in 6 months' time, you'll get the same results you would have by having a PT. And you'll be able to defend your family, defend your honor, protect your property, and you'll look pretty cool as well. That's the value we'll offer you in 6 months. Does that sound more valuable to you, right?
Yeah.
That's far more engaging than the cost of the gi.
I think for that one, again, I just had no context, but it was just, he was like, but I might have done something similar like that. And he's like, well, whatever, like that's not a prima thing. He's like, but just why is it so expensive? And that's where I guess I picked up on the why is it? And I was just explaining that.
This is the thing. And for a lot of people out there now, but you've got to bear in mind, there's some people out there that aren't your buyer. Right. Some people, you get prospects and suspects. You get people out there that are your potential buyers, and you've got the people out there that look like your buyers, but are never going to buy. And they're going to kick. Someone put a post up yesterday on Instagram. I done a reel. I think got like 7,000 views. And then one guy, I've never seen this guy comment on my stuff. And he put on there, why would I want access? So they get access to 700. What am I going to do with 780 videos? Watch them all and not action a thing. And I put, or you could watch the videos that you need help with and implement one thing and get a result. That's the other side. But that guy's never going to buy it.
No,
because all he heard was get access to, what do I want 780 videos? He was automatically trying to find a negative.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't like, crap, that's good. That might have the missing piece I need. He was like, oh, what do I want? What am I going to do? What 700? Oh, of course you're not going to sit there back to back watching videos. It's not Netflix.
Right. I'm just curious, David, how long do I got you for? Because we're already a little over.
10 minutes.
Perfect. Then, yeah, there's guys like I've noticed that too, where they're just like, oh, this and that. I'm like, well, okay, fine. Like, move on. You can go find someone else.
Do you know the thing is, I treat everyone as potential clients. And some of the people now so I'll get people go, oh yeah, sales. The big thing I get is I get people say, oh yeah, sales, I know that. I'm like, great. It's good you got some experience. And then instead of me being like, well, you're not my buyer, I say to them, let me ask you, what industry you're in? And they'll tell me, whatever, telecoms. Okay, cool. If we put you in a chart of everyone in the country in telecom sales, what position do you think you'd come in? Oh, I don't know. And most people normally go, oh, halfway. Okay, cool. Now imagine for the moment, if we could get you 10 spaces higher, would you earn more money? Yes. That's what we do. We take people like you that are great at what you do. And I'm not saying you're not. And we help elevate you to the next level. Tell me, if you got 10 spaces higher, what do you think that would make you more a year? I haven't got a clue. Talk about it. let's say hypothetically, we could help you make another 50K a year. That's another 500,000 in 10 years. How old are you? 30. When are you going to retire? 50. Okay, so that's potentially another £1 million in your lifetime. Imagine for the moment I'm right, and we can make you another £1 million in your lifetime, but you can leave. Have you got kids? Yeah, I bet you can leave to your kids. Would it be worth us having a conversation to see if that could happen? And if it's not, you can wipe your mouth of it and never look at it again. Oh, I suppose so. And that's the conversations we have.
Mm-hmm.
But other people are like, listen, not a chance. I'm a number one in my industry. Okay. If you think you're the number one in your industry, that's great. Congratulations. If you ever want to come back and have a chat, just drop by. We're always here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just having that conversation. And I think a lot of the time in sales, but a lot of the time people out there, not you, but in general, people they hear the same stuff over and over again, and we get used to it, and then we react differently than we did the first time we heard it. And right. I think one of the specialist things in sales is treating every single person you talk to like the only person you've got, knowing that it's not. And I think it's hearing the objection as if you heard it the first time, but knowing exactly what to say. And I think when people can get to that stage, we deliver far better service to the people that want to buy our products and services.
Very true. That's very true. Yeah, that's what I started doing near the end. Just treating it like it's the first time I've ever tried to pitch a sale, be as honest, knowing I already knew what to do, but just be that honest and sincere, softer voice instead of very assertive and loud. And
think about actors.
Yeah.
Look at the difference between Robert De Niro and just some crappy film. You could put Robert De Niro in a terrible film and the acting would pull it through.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can take the best film in the world and put a crappy actor in it and it would still flop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same in sales. And we've got to go, am I being a Robert De Niro right now? Or am I being the guy off the soap? You can still be the guy off the soap and do all right. There's people that do television soaps and make a lot of money. But it doesn't mean you're going to be Robert De Niro.
No.
And actually, if you hone your craft so you can be Robert De Niro if you want, you've got a lot more options because you're in more demand.
Very true. Very true. I want to be mindful of your time. So I got 3 going out questions for you.
Yeah, go on.
So first one, other than work, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy during these COVID lockdown times?
I took up windsurfing. So I live on the south of England, right on the coast. So I literally live right next to the river. So I took up windsurfing, which I always thought looked boring as hell. And I'll be honest, I was completely shocked. I absolutely love it. And now I haven't been in the last few months because of winter, but I'm starting back there in the next week. I'm back doing boxing because I don't like going to the gym, but I want to lose weight. And having something where people have got pads that I can hit, I find really, really keeps my concentration. So anything I can't hold a phone because I've got gloves on or I'm a windsurfer is always good because I spend about 10 hours a day on my phone.
I bet. So it's kind of been this whole episode, but what is someone's inspired to be like you, go down sales, start their own thing. What are some tips, tricks, or advice you give them to start that path?
If I can do sales, anyone can do sales. Most people want the instant gratification of results, and they'll see some people come into sales and hit it straight away. And then they'll think, this isn't for me. I didn't do as well as them. Stay committed and think long-term, learn the craft and watch back your games, like listen to your calls, learn what other people hear from you, not what you think, what the impression you think everyone hears. Because what we think we say and the way it comes across is always completely different. And when you hear what you sound like and everyone goes, oh, I hate my voice, that's the voice everyone else hears. So if we hate the sound of our voice, feel sorry for everyone else. If you don't like the fact you talk so fast, slow down. If you hear yourself back and you mumble, learn to talk more clearly. If you sound miserable as hell, start smiling more, make more effort. I talk really loud because I used to mumble really badly. And you'll hear me sometimes, I'll go really fast. And then in my brain, I'm like, no, slow it back down. So it's a learned skill. Anyone's welcome to go to thesalesangel.com. You can get access, like we said earlier, to the platform. And it's about committing to it. No one would want to go and become a doctor without studying. No one watch videos on YouTube about how to fly a helicopter and then just jump in the seat and start flying it. You've got to get out there and do the lessons, do the craft, cut your teeth, and develop the skills over time. But I give you the word to this. If people stay committed, You learn the craft, you listen back, you stay committed, you stay committed, you stay committed, and you keep doing it. Over time, you can have dramatic increases, like crazily high. That would be my advice. Perfect.
And you kind of touched on the third one is where if people are inspired, want to get your purchase, your website. Wow, I'm stuttering now.
The platform.
Yes, the platform. Thank you, David.
Just go to thesalesangel.com, or you can go to instagram.com/thesalesangel. And I literally post reels pretty much every day of content on there. But the platform's the best option because, like we said earlier, you can go on there and test it out without spending a penny. You have to put your card details in. But to be frank, I mean, if you're worried about credit card fraud, never buy something off Amazon. Like anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're ever going to utilize me, this is the step before you pay for it. And it's a far less riskier version for people to put your card details in. And if you don't feel comfortable, just follow me on Insta. But yeah, thank you for having me today. Really enjoyed it.
Absolute honor and a pleasure.
Test. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we are way the fuck back there. Okay. Hello, everybody. Today we have a wonderful guest, David Angel. We talk sales, but not in like the boring way. He actually gives me like really good sales approach and mindsets and different tactics. And honestly, I wanted to give everyone a heads up. It is definitely worth listening to the end. The man is just high energy, high intensity. He knows a lot about his cars more than I do. And yeah, it's just exciting. So let's get right into it and have a great time. Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel. Change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome and see you next time.